maybe we've returned.
Yeah, we'll be singing this episode. Are we good?
Okay. Let's try action again.
Action!
Just kidding. I will answer that after the break.
Rolling one.
I'm not drunk yet.
Okay.
Right? We're getting a signal. Hi everybody and welcome to episode 19 of Knights of the Round Table. Today we are discussing the book Equal Rites, a Discworld novel by Terry Pratchett. It is basically the story of a young girl who is accidentally on purpose given the powers of a wizard as she struggles. Oh dear. Yeah, as she struggles to acquire that self-same birthright. And I want to start with overall impressions of the book. Who wants to go first?
Okay, sure. First impressions, Terry Pratchett is a very particular way about him. Best way I can describe it, I suppose, without spoiling anything, is if Harry Potter were to meet the theory of relativity, meet Wicca, meet Dark Crystal, mix them all together, and throw in a bit of comedy for good measure, that would be this book.
Okay.
When I started, I had never read any of the Terry Pratchett novels before, even though I really wanted to. So when I first started reading the book, my first thought was, this feels an awful lot like Douglas Adams. In style, in sense of humor.
No, they have a very similar sense of humor. Yeah. I don't know, I like Terry Pratchett's turn of words better. I really like this book. I thought it was a very quick read, it was very humorous, it kept me giggling in awkward places. Like on the bus. Again.
Oh, you mean actual places?
Yeah, but actual...
I was like, where's she going with this?
Holy crap! Yes,
Seriously?
actual places.
Well, the whole...
On the bus, just before training, that kind of thing. People would turn and look at you and go, what? Because you're sitting there going...
It says in the first page of this book that this is a story about sex, right off the bat. But
yes.
That's not what he meant about it.
Well, yes, it is. It's
Sort of,
about biological sex and gender expectations.
Well, it's about gender, not so much about awkward places.
The physical intimacy version of that.
Okay, we're being serious now. Okay.
Serious?
Yeah, right.
Already my influence is doomed this episode.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Okay, nice. Yeah, it's a good book. There are two sentences that I really love that happen early on in the book, and the one is, often there is no more than a little plaque to reveal that against all gynecological probability, someone famous was born halfway up a wall. That cracked me up, and also when he twists expectations slightly in the sentence, activity, movement, liveliness, all these words would be completely inaccurate descriptions of the staff's response. So yeah, he has a brilliant sense of humour, and reading it is an absolute delight. I enjoyed it very much. Anyone want to add anything?
Just talking about his wording there, there's a similarity there to Douglas Adams, as you're mentioning. I find his the way he sets the words out, just agree with me a little bit better. I find a little bit more humorous than Douglas Adams. Just some of the things, like, I don't think I'm going to be giving away anything really here. A little clip from the book. S gazed down defiantly. Granny glared up sternly. But Granny had spent her lifetime bending recalcitrant creatures to her. Thank you.
What?
To her bidding, and while Esk was surprisingly a strong opponent, it was obvious that she would give in before the end of this paragraph.
The book was full of stuff like that.
So just little bits here, there, whatever, and talking about a lone bee that in the earlier parts is going off as it being, I believe it's an entrepreneurial bee or something like that, or a self-employed bee. Just little twists in the words that add a little bit of light flavor to to it, a little bit of light comedy to it.
Yeah, I was laughing a lot reading this book. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Humor. And also, but an important message behind it as well. No. Yes.
No, there was definitely an undercurrent, you know, to what he was trying to say. It was actually, the book was actually a lot more intellectual than it really gives that impression of. Words, more words. I did enjoy the whole gender roles storyline almost more than I enjoyed the actual plot itself. Because, I mean, the actual plot itself was, you know, fairly simplistic. What made the story interesting was that constant struggle.
Yes.
For me, definitely.
The whole women cannot be wizards, even though clearly they can.
And men cannot be witches.
And men cannot be witches.
That's wrong.
Clearly
wrong.
They can. And it cracked me up because right at the end, when Granny and the dean of the Wizard University, I forget his name.
Cut.
Cuddle? Was it Cuddle?
Cut angle. Or Q-tangle. Whatever you want to call them.
When they were having their magic battle, they were all doing the same thing. They were basically shape-shifting. And it was a witch and a wizard who were supposed to be completely different entities doing the exact same thing. That also made me sort of giggle to myself.
At the same time, that scene did bother me a little bit because I really expected more out of that fight. I expected Granny to use a lot of
Fireworks?
A lot of interesting, cunning, whatever, but all she was really doing was mirroring him.
No, she was changing shape to
block him or to stymie him, but I wanted a little bit more out of that scene.
I was quite happy with that scene because stuff like that happens all the time in Celtic myth. But it does happen all the time. I'm like, I know this story, and it made me happy. There, I can't remember the story exactly. I think it's from the Tales of the Elders of Ireland, or it's either that or the Mabinogion, where somebody is pursuing somebody else, and one person turns into the worm, so another person turns into a chicken to eat the worm, and then the other person turns into something else to attack the chicken turns into something else to eat it. So for that, I really enjoyed that.
I remember something about that, hearing what that story.
I can't remember who it was, or whether it was the Mabinogion or in the Tales of the Elders of Ireland that I read it, but yeah.
I think it was in the Mabinogion.
Mabinogion? Yeah. It's a fairly common motif in Celtic myths, in many myths, I'm sure.
So, one of the things I found for myself with the character development in this story, from what I understand, Terry Pratchett has used the Granny. This is the first Terry Pratchett book that I've actually read, but he's used her in the previous 2 books as well. So he's got a fairly developed character, and he continues to use her as the books progress.
Good, because I like her.
Indeed. Indeed, she has a certain style of wit about her that is scornful but playful at the same time. Now, her character I find is very well developed, but Escarina, as her name is, I personally found that comparatively she was a little bit shallow, like not quite as rich as Granny was in the character depth. What are your thoughts on that? How did you find her compared to the others? And 2, like I also thought that she seemed to be a little bit too smart for someone of, was she 8 years old in this? 8 years old in the book? Like, do you think she was portrayed as a little too much for her age?
I don't think Esk needed the same sort of character depth as Granny because her character was still developing, right? That was the whole point. I mean, halfway through the book she starts to believe all of this women's place stuff and starts reciting it back to Granny and gets mad at her, basically. So I don't think she needed the character depth. I like that her character was still developing, and I don't think she was too clever for an 8-year-old at all. My 8-year-old niece would behave much the same way. They have this sort of this odd logic that is actually really very clever. I think we don't give children enough credit for their smarts.
Childlike clarity.
Yeah, that's it exactly. From the mouths of babes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I was pretty okay with her role in this too.
I thought maybe that the development of the magic within her in the book as well, likely, well, obviously it's central to the theme of the book, but played a role in the character development in and of itself.
Yes,
so
that's true.
That actually had a good influence on the, I suppose, the shiftiness of it. I was just, I don't know, I see Granny and then I see her and I'm like, it's, you know, kind of wanting a little bit more.
They did make it very clear, however, that she was a lot smarter than her brothers.
Yes.
This is true.
And that wasn't completely the magic's fault. No, because they alluded to the fact that, she's special because she can do magic, but they also went out of their way to be like, and she's also in her own right a smart child.
Yes. Oh, okay, yes.
Oh, yeah,
that's funny. Okay.
I understand.
I thought you were just calling like boys in general dumb. That's why I was giving you this.
At that age? And right up until about 25.
Oh, God.
Some of us are still Okay, we're good.
Yeah, no. I'm glad he uses Granny more though, because I really liked Granny as a character. She was the right level of common sense and bizarre whimsy and snark and genuine affection that I think makes for a really interesting, really enjoyable character to follow.
Would you say that she was the main character? Because when I was reading the book, I was fully expecting Esk to end up being the main character, but as the book went on, I was a little bit on the fence about whether it was her or Granny.
Yeah, it was sort of a dual effort, really. The story was about Esk, but none of it would have happened without Granny. That said, you follow Esk more than you follow Granny. So you only learn about Granny's ridiculous palm readings and stuff because Esk learned about it. So I think Esk really is the main character, but Granny does feature very prominently. That's my take on it.
Seconded.
Okay. Motion passed.
What motion are we passing? What?
I don't know.
Passed it.
Main character question. So
there we go. Oh yes, and the other thing too is I found it humorous in one of the avenues of humor that Terry Pratchett used was Granny's use of headology.
Yeah, her use of words in general. Yeah.
Just simple things like, anyone that's read a little bit on psychology knows that there's, people, if people expect a certain amount from you and you portray that, they don't look for anything else.
Yeah,
and Granny was very good
confirmation bias plus placebo effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Granny was very good at perceiving that and to play into that. Her hat and her cloak. That was a goat blanket.
Yes, that doubled as a goat blanket in the winter.
Yeah, for example. So
yeah.
Esk obviously learned a bit of that from her.
It's headology.
It's a perfectly good medieval sounding substitute for psychology.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah. I liked the subversion of the witch on the broomstick that happened with Granny, because Granny cannot abide by flying on broomsticks, and then she ends up on a broomstick that is the worst possible broomstick on the face of the planet. And that, I was almost in tears at one, when she had to like jump start the broomstick, like run and jump and try to get the broomstick going. It cracked me up.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of favorite quotes of the movie.
Movie?
Oh, it's true. We're doing a book today. Wait, this is not a movie? Oh, no. Favorite quotes of the book. When she's having a Katangle, or Cut Angle, whatever his name is, ride on the broomstick with her. He's like, I always envisioned that broomsticks would be faster. And she's like, well, they are if your fat ass isn't on it.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Those two at the end, though, they made me so happy. I'm like, oh.
There's lots of brilliant going on.
Yeah. I really, yeah. There's so much. I like that the stuff itself had a mind of its own. I like that. What's his face? Dill, the original wizard who accidentally gave Billet, gave Esk on purpose the wizarding powers. Started off as his new life as an apple tree in their yard, and then later became an ant, which cracks me up. Because I like that death gave him an option. You could, die and go wherever, or you could die and be reincarnated. And you don't find out what he decides until like halfway through the book.
Ant.
Well, no, see, here's the thing, his karma was not great, so we had to start at the bottom.
I would probably have chosen the apple tree over the ant personally.
Yeah, but you start off as a plant, and then you move up into the animals, that's the hierarchy. So after you're done being an ant, and if you were a particularly good ant, then you go up to, like, I don't know, a mouse or something, yeah.
Poor ants. They get the shaft every time.
Yeah, well, and I also like that they were building like a sugar cube pyramid in the walls of the university. These industrious ants. Oh my god! Ants! Although my aunts are pretty industrious too, so I guess that counts. I'm just gonna drink.
So, Terry Pratchett, this is his third book in the Discworld series, and there is, there was about 40 books in this series.
Is there? Oh, good. More to add to my collection.
Very least 20.
So
maybe 40. It's possible.
And then he did some other books too, but there's a lot of books apparently in this series. I think I read somewhere that he averaged, at least at one point, before his Alzheimer's, 2 books a year.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Yeah, I do know that he was a fairly prolific writer.
They're not, they're not huge books like Stephen King or Tom Clancy or anything. So.
Stephen Erickson, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're such fun reads too. I'm not sure if you guys got this, but...
Walk us with boys.
What? No. in Australia, I'm not sure if you got this program, but they had an animated series of Discworld.
Oh.
They did. And I don't remember much of it except for the one episode where Death decides that he's had enough of being Death and goes to join the French Legion. But I hope that I'm going to go search for them now because I hope that this was in the Discworld series because that would be so much fun to watch. Does anyone have any major beefs with the book? Any massive complaints? Well, it doesn't have to be massive, it can be minuscule.
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't bigger.
It wasn't bigger. There wasn't more, damn it!
I thought, okay, the pacing of the book was fairly quick. Mm-hmm. It was well set, but it was fairly quick. We could have easily added another 20, 40, 60 pages even to this book, and it not have affected that really at all.
Well, I don't know. It might have taken away some of the fun. Because this book is primarily fun.
Depending what you interject, though. With his style of writing, I don't think it could be. It would have to be fun, but I think it could have been bigger. I think it could have been a little bit bigger.
I think the final scene was a little bit shortchanged. Like it felt like he was rushing through it just
to meet a deadline.
To meet a deadline.
Quite possibly.
Exactly.
Yeah. I did find that the ending of the book was not as grand as it could have been, really. But I liked the pacing of the book. I liked that it was a short read. I read it in literally 3 bus trips. So, at most, an hour and 20 minutes. And I was giggling almost the entire time. But yeah, the ending of the book did feel a bit... And the end. And everyone lived happily ever after. It did feel rushed.
There's something else I did find out that was a little bit interesting about Terry Pratchett himself. I don't know if you looked up anything on the guy, but he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and so now he actually he dictates either using software his work, or he talks with has one of his people do the typing for him. Which he actually finds a little bit easier. It's just he has a loss of grasp of thoughts at the current moment. But at any rate, previous to this, he's received a number of awards, of course, and he was actually knighted for his services to literature in 2009. Now, on this point, you know, anyone that writes fantasy wants to be knighted. It's a dream come true, I guess, from what he's saying there.
Only if I also get armor. Sorry, keep going.
Of course, going along with it, he did actually make himself a sword. With the help of his friends.
Oh, he's now my new favorite person.
So, he told a Times Higher Education interviewer that, quote, "At the end of last year, I made my own sword. I dug out the iron ore from a field about 10 miles away. I was helped by interested friends. We logged 80 kilos of iron ore, used clay from the garden and straw to make a kiln, and lit the kiln with wildfire by making it with a bow. Colin Smith, his long-term friend and agent, unquote, Colin Smith, his long-term friend and agent, donated some piece of meteoric iron. Quote, Thunderbolt iron has a special place in magic, and we put that into the smelt. And I remember when we saw the iron apart, it looked like silver. Everything about it I touched, handled, and so forth. And everything was as it should have been, it seemed to me."
Aww.
It's kind of cool. Author
Wow.
deep into fantasy, crafting his own sword. Not just buying his own sword, but actually crafting his own sword. That's pretty cool.
That is really impressive.
The fact that, you know, he lugged the ore out of the mountain too is just a little bit badass. Sorry, but yeah, you know, I mean.
Well, Smiths are supposed to have been thought to have magical powers, being able to transmute metals, etc., etc. The whole thing was quite magical. That makes me happy. Oh, Terry Pratchett, you're awesome. If ever I get a knighthood, I'll do the exact same thing.
Do they do that? That's right.
What? Yeah, no, I don't think it's... Well, as a member of the Commonwealth, maybe I might receive some sort of... Yeah, right. Like I'm actually taking this seriously. There is no way I'm going to receive, like, a knighthood or... What do they call them? Is it a knighthood when you're made a dame? Ladyhood?
This is not
but she went along with her thing.
No. Because when men are knighted, they become knights.
Knights of the British Order.
Thank you. But when women receive the same commendation, they become dames. What's that ceremony called? It's not still a knighthood. It can't be.
Point to look up later.
Yeah. Okay, I'll post it on the screen or something.
There we go.
Alright, so if you're going to give this book anything out of 5 stars, what would it be?
Complexity would give it somewhere around 3 out of 5 because it wasn't a very complicated book, but it was a very enjoyable book, so I'll call it a 4.
4?
I would settle with a 4 as well. I really enjoyed a lot of the book, but I really wanted a little bit more out of it and a little bit more character development, as I was saying that. I understand why there wasn't so much, but it's just my personal thoughts.
Yeah.
So 4 for me as well.
I'm going 4 as well, which is actually an extremely high score in my opinion. It was a quick read, it was really enjoyable if you're looking for something to read over a rainy afternoon weekend or even just outside in the sunshine for a little bit. This is the book for you. It's really funny, and it touches on some pretty big issues, actually, particularly gender stereotyping and that kind of stuff. And it does so in a humorous way, but I do like my books a little more involved, a little more intense, and possibly a little more depressing. So that's why it's not getting a full 5. 4. It's a brilliant book, though. I really do recommend everybody pick it up. So, who wants to pick the next one?
Give the bowl in your hands.
Game.
I will hold the bowl for you and you
Yeah,
pick
but what's
it.
the ceremony?
It's the same ceremony.
So it's a knighthood ceremony? They're just called dames.
It's a little vague.
A monarchy cannot be vain.
I can't even read my own writing. Another Fine Myth by Robert Aspirin?
Yes. Oh yes. Good book. Good book.
Is it?
Yes.
Haven't read it at all.
It's also firmly in the fun genre.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Alright, so in 2 weeks' time, we will be discussing Another Fine Myth by Robert Aspirin.
That'll take about 5 minutes to read.
Bye! Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a great